This video introduces you to using JavaScript as a development language in your Kony application. JavaScript has been the most commonly used language for web development. Today, we will learn how you can use your existing JavaScript skills with the Kony Visualizer to create multi-channel mobile applications. With Kony Visualizer, you can use the simplicity of JavaScript and yet create powerful multi-edge native mobile applications. Kony provides developer-friendly APIs that are easy to use and work across multiple platforms. Today, we will learn how to read and write data on widgets, define widget methods, use Kony APIs, and create a widget through JavaScript. To start, we will take an existing example of an application with a login screen. We will add functionality to the login screen to validate a user and navigate to the next screen. In this example, on the login form, we have used the text box widgets for the username and password. We also have a login button. Every Kony widget is defined as a JavaScript object. Our first step here will be to read the data that the user enters on the username and password text boxes and validate that against a set of valid user credentials. To achieve this, I will add a new module to the project. A module creates a JavaScript file and opens an editor which allows you to write your JavaScript functions. In this module, I will add a function to validate the user. Let us call this function validateUser. Notice how the code editor validates my JavaScript syntax as I'm editing my code. Inside this function, I will declare variables, each for the username and password. Now, let's read the data from the text boxes on the login form. I will use the text property of the text box to do this. Notice how the IntelliSense built into the editor helps us to quickly use the widgets and their properties and methods while we write the code. Now that I have assigned the data from the username text box to the variable username, let us do the same for the password. Since this is just an example, I have already defined constants for the username and password so that we can validate the user against them. In a real-world scenario, you would validate the credentials against a stored dataset or through data from a service call. Next, let's add some code for the validation. I will add a condition statement to verify the user credentials. If the credentials are correct, I will navigate to the next form. If they are incorrect, I will show an alert message to the user. Here we will use the alert API. The alert API I'm using here requires two parameters: the basic configurations for the API like message, alert type, title, label values, and the alert handler, and the platform specific property configurations. Here I have defined the configuration parameters and I am invoking the alert API using kony.ui.alert in case the user validation fails. The next step is to bind the button action with the validateUser function. You can do this directly by assigning the validateUser function to the onclick event of the button through the action editor. However, in this tutorial we will see how this can be done through the JavaScript code. The Kony form has a few lifecycle events associated with it. They are pre-show, on-init, and post-show. I will define the onclick method of my login button on the login form's post-show event. We will do this by assigning the validateUser function to the login button's onclick method. This is how you would define the widget methods and assign functions to them. Similar to how we previously read data, we will now see how we can write data to the widgets. We will add a code snippet as part of the pre-show event of the form to clear the text boxes before the form loads. For this, we will assign an empty value to the username and password text boxes. This will clear any values that may have been in the text boxes. Next, we will see how we can create a new widget dynamically through JavaScript. In this example, I will add a label that says Welcome John on my dashboard form. This label will be dynamically created. I will create a label through JavaScript to do this. We will assign this label to a flex container named flexMain already present on the form. The label widget requires three parameters for its constructor: the basic parameters, the layout parameters, and the platform specific parameters. In this example, I have declared the minimum parameters required for me to create this widget. Next, I will include the parameters as part of my constructor and then add the label to the flex container. I will invoke the widget constructor before showing the login form. Now that we have made the updates, let us preview this application on the Visualizer app preview. As designed, I have the login form with the username and password text boxes. Let me enter the credentials and click the login button. The application reads the values and validates the credentials and then navigates to the dashboard screen where it has created the label widget with the welcome message. Now when I navigate back to the login screen, you will notice that the text box values have been cleared. This was just a brief overview of how JavaScript can be used in the Kony Visualizer to build native mobile applications. For more details on our widgets and APIs, please visit our documentation on docs.kony.com.